Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Fast Flag Facts with John. I'm John and this is the show where we talk about the who, what, when, where, and why of flags from around the world. Last week we looked at the badass bear flag of Zheleznogorsk, Russia. This week we are coming all the way back to the United States and we are looking at a flag for the largest city in the country. That's right, we are looking at the flag of New York City. The current version of the flag is credited to a man named Paul O'Dwyer, who was the New York City Council president at the time. He made a very slight tweak to the flag. He changed the date featured on the seal in the lower portion of the flag. The old date on the prior version of the flag was 1664, representing the year that the city transitioned from Dutch rule to British rule. The new date put on the seal by Paul O'Dwyer was 1625. This is meant to represent when the Dutch founded the city. O'Dwyer believed that the flag should be more representative of the original roots of the city and somewhat distant from the British rule that lasted between 1664 and 1776. However, most historians contest this date. They say that there is no true evidence that the city was founded in the year 1625. Some historians joke that this was a dig by Paul O'Dwyer at the city of Boston. Boston was founded in 1630, and so by putting the year 1625 on their flag, it was Paul O'Dwyer's way of saying, hey, New York City was here first. The design of the flag features a simple vertical tricolor of dark blue, white, and orange, with the crest of the city in the center. The crest of the city is very complex. It features a shield with windmills, beavers, and flour barrels on it. The shield is being held by a sailor and an Indian or Native American. Below this image is the year 1625. Above the image is a bald eagle. The words Seal of the City of New York are written in Latin, and the entire thing is enshrined in a laurel wreath. So what is the symbology of this flag? First of all, we have the colors. Those were actually taken from the Dutch flag of the 1600s, known more popularly today as the Prince's flag, in reference to Sir William of Orange, Prince of the Netherlands. New York City adopted these colors for their flag because they wanted to reference the fact that they were founded under the Dutch as the city of New Amsterdam. What's really interesting is that the actual country of the Netherlands had transitioned to their modern day flag of a horizontal tricolor with red, white, and blue sometime in the mid-1800s. The Prince's flag did remain popular in the Netherlands throughout the 1800s and 1900s. However, in the early 1930s, the flag was co-opted by the Dutch Nazi Party. The Dutch Nazi Party made the Prince's flag their official color throughout the duration of World War II. And to this day, the Prince's flag is considered an extremely controversial and occasionally racist flag to fly in the Netherlands. It's really complicated because the flag goes back to the 1600s. So there are people in the Netherlands today who say, no, this is a good flag and it represents our history, while there are many, many other people who say, yes, but now it's a Nazi flag. This leads to a little bit of irony because in the city of New York, it is simply the New York City flag. But if they were to take that flag over to the Netherlands and fly it, they would most likely be under high suspicion of being a Nazi. There's symbolism in the seal as well, the windmill also representing Dutch history. The flour barrels represent the fact that in the 1600s, New York City actually had a monopoly on milling flour in the colonies, and the beaver is the state animal. It also symbolizes the Dutch West India Company because some of the early settlers in the region came in order to trade in beaver pelts. The sailor represents the white people living in New York City, as well as the concept of the European colonizer. And in a move that at the time was considered very progressive, the Native American acknowledges the fact that there were people in the area before. However, the people that lived on the island of Manhattan were Algonquin Indians, and the person featured on the seal of New York City is not an Algonquin Indian. He is just sort of a generic Indian figure, not based on any real tribe. So in the 1600s, it was probably pretty woke to have this on a seal, but nowadays it looks like they didn't try very hard. As I said before, the date of 1625 represents when the city of New Amsterdam was founded. The American eagle on top is the official animal symbol for the United States. And going all the way back to ancient Greece, a laurel wreath represents victory. Once again, I'm not going to attempt to draw this flag this week. I think it would be a lot more fun if you tried it at home. Do your best attempt at drawing this flag and its very complex seal from memory, and send a picture of it to me at FastFlagFactswithJon@gmail.com. If I like your attempt, I may feature it on the next episode of the show.
And shout out to Flag Fam member Paul Painter for painting this awesome version of the Zhelezhnygorsk flag.
So the very first iteration of the New York City flag premiered in 1915. However, if we want to look at when the seal was first used, we have to go all the way back to the 1600s. The Dutch used a seal for the city of New Amsterdam, but it looked very, very different. The first version of what we can say is the modern seal of New York City dates to around 1686. There was a lot of variations over the next 100 years, but the seal became standardized in 1784. In 1915, there was a celebration for the 250th anniversary of the transition from Dutch to British rule, and so as such, there was a lot of attention given to the symbols of the city. Paul Manship, an American sculptor and artist, was hired to update the design for the city seal, and he came up with this version. He also came up with the city flag. Prior to 1915, if a flag was required for some sort of a ceremony, they simply put the seal on a white background and flew it. A little bit like what we talked about a few weeks ago with Mexico City. This flag was unveiled on April 6th, 1915, and it has been the flag of the city ever since. So you can see this flag in a lot of places. Obviously, it can be seen in New York City, especially around New York City Hall and the police department. The place that you are most likely to have seen this flag, even if you didn't realize it, is in New York City's sports teams. The New York Knicks, the New York Mets, the New York City Football Club, and the New York Islanders hockey team all have designed their logos to either feature the flag or feature the colors of the flag. There are also variants of this flag for the New York City Council and the New York City Mayor. So anytime the council meets or anytime the mayor gives a speech, you are likely to see a variant. Outside of these few places, though, you're not too terribly likely to see the flag flying throughout the city. You're much more likely to see individual borough flags. The 5 boroughs of New York, including the Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens, and Staten Island, all have their own individual borough flags, which we may feature on a different episode of this show. So when you're in those boroughs, especially ones like Brooklyn with a lot of inner borough pride, you're probably more likely to see the individual borough flag than you are to see the flag for New York City. Depending on who you ask, New York City is one of, if not the oldest cities in the United States. It is also perhaps the most famous American city in the world, and it is our most populous city. And I think that that weird Dutch Nazi connection is too bizarre not to mention. So that does it for this week's episode of Fast Flag Facts with John. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Next week, we are going to conquer the last continent, the only one that I haven't done a flag for on this channel. We are going to look at the nation level flag for Brazil.